So I'm going to attempt a repair of this Elite Series 2 controller. Now, I say attempt because I am not fully confident in my tool's ability to remove the joystick, which I'll get to in a second. And I do have other tools on the way, so I am hoping that I can give this a shot. If it works, fantastic. If it's not, then I'll hold off until I get better tools. So what happened to this guy is he took a little tumble down a staircase and broke the internal mechanisms of this right analog stick. Now, I took it apart just to kind of see what exactly went wrong. But so to take this apart, you pop off the thumbsticks and the D-pad, and then with some persuasion with a plastic pry tool, you go around the entirety of the controller, unsnapping a whole bunch of clips inside. And this rubber right here is very soft. I ended up kind of slicing into it a little right up there. Nothing critical, but it's a little annoying. They were hard to take off. So those popped off. I got down to here where I started, well, grab one. There's one more step. You have to unscrew these, which are held on very tightly. They're actually like screwed onto the thumbstick assembly itself. So iFixit recommends using like a good pair of pliers to grab onto it and unscrew. What I did is I ended up just attaching one of the thumbsticks and then just unscrewing it that way. Probably not the best, but definitely not good for these types of thumbsticks. But as far as I'm concerned, it worked for my purposes. I'll put that back. So what ended up happening when this thing fell down is I kind of taped all the evidence here. Is the actual, I guess this is a pretty good one, the sort of pivots that connect to the potentiometers snapped into just multiple different pieces. So it was experiencing, the main critical flaw of it is it was experiencing drift because the joystick wasn't attached to one of the potentiometers, which means it was just free floating. So that input was just all over the place. And when you were actually actuating the stick, you could feel it get real, to best describe it as crunchy. Like it wouldn't want to go to the top right quadrant. Just something was physically stopping it. And that's, again, because the whole thing was just completely disintegrated. Well, broken. Bits wouldn't allow it to go that far. So I have two new joysticks here. I'm only going to replace one. So now I'm, with the help of an iFixit guide, I'm going to take the rest of this apart. So there's a bunch of T8 security screws, one underneath a warranty sticker. Oh, it does recommend I take off this, which I've never liked. I think I broke one of mine, one of these things on my original Xbox One controllers. So I'll just hold that. Yeah, the shoulder button assembly. Good. Now I gotta see, is it the entire assembly or if it's just this center piece? Oh, they just loosened it. Huh, okay. Maybe I don't have to loosen that. They just have a spudger under it for some reason. No, I said I'm not confident in my tools because I'll be trying hot air, which I've had real mixed results with. I think it's just because my hot air station, it could be my hot air station is cheap, probably isn't outputting the heat that it's saying it is, and either I'm going way too hot or way too cool, and it's just not penetrating the board. I'll try it though, but this is something I'd like to get working again. I'm putting in all this effort. And the tools that I have coming, one of them is a solder sucker, specifically for, well, at least as far as my intentions are, it'll be used for joysticks. Because those are a lot better at getting through whole components. Just slurping the solder out of those vias, instead of trying to heat all the components up so that you can pull the component through the vias. Okay, so being removed from the back cover. Okay, so it should, this entire assembly should just pop out from the back cover. That seems to be consistent. Interesting. Okay. So for the additional buttons on the back, they have a bunch of like just contact points that they just rest on. Interesting. Okay. So now I know I need to unsolder some things. So let me check. Oh, okay. So these are just one of these types of connectors. That's easy. I might have to... I think the soldering is for the rumble motors. Do I necessarily need to do that? And there's T6 screws, okay. Grab a T6. I will move my camera a little closer. It's a T6 bit. I'm just going to see how it behaves when I take it out. Not to say that resoldering these wires are difficult or anything. It's just... I think I'm trying to get to the board underneath this one, so I don't really need to worry about fully disassembling this thing. Oh no, I'm not, because joystick pads are right here. Fantastic. Okay, so if I remember on the 360 controllers, they're held in, there's like a plug on the bottom. Yeah, and I see it. That's what's kind of holding it in. Oh, okay, that's the audio jack, which is kind of free-floating. There's this post here that I see if I can remove. It's what's mainly holding in this board. I wonder how iFixit took it out. Okay, they did lift out one of them. They lifted out the other one. What was that? Yeah, okay. So it would be good to desolder these black wires. So it's gray then black. There's a lot of solder on this black wire for some reason. Take some of it off. So now, the one I want is this one. The idea is to get it held in place, which I hope my little helping hands are good enough. Covering components I don't want blasted with heat and capped in tape. And hoping for the best, basically. So I can start by taking off the sticker and this little foam piece. I'm not entirely sure what this is. Why there's like these pads. I'm going to use a very liberal amount of tape because I don't want to melt anything. I don't want to damage anything. Especially these little pogo pins right there. I don't want to harm them. Okay, I didn't accidentally tape down the joystick. That would be very counterproductive. Make sure it's nice and... This is the one I've been using. Before I get too far ahead of myself. Once I start adding flux paste, it's going to get real messy. So what I'm going to want to start by doing is adding some fresh solder to these points. Ideally, they kind of help loosen them up. Get some of my tools out of the way. Well, okay. Add a little more flux for good measure. We're getting close. Surrender, surrender. Perfect. 490 on my hot air station. I don't think that's correct. I also could assume that it's in Celsius, but it's actually in Fahrenheit. Yeah, I even melted the back of the connector, which is fine. I don't really care about the old one. So it looks good. Looks very good. Let me clean it up. But I'll hold off on cleaning it up. I need to go grab my solder wick. So now I want to get all that solder out of those vias as best as I can. I do have a solder sucker, just a manual one. It's not fantastic, but it does do the job. I do want to try and get a lot of this flux off, because despite it being no clean, it ends up making a hell of a mess, and it's hard to take off. So though I like the applicator, I'm not really that big of a fan of the product. And since the rest of this installation is going to be via solder iron, I'll take off all of this Captain tape. Gotta say, I underestimated needing a solder sucker, or I underestimated my hot air station. I might even cancel that order for the solder sucker, because joystick repair is the only thing I would ever use it for. And I don't want to get too big-headed about it, but that went a lot easier than I expected. Because I've tried this repair before on some PlayStation 4 controllers, and it was just a nightmare. I think I ended up melting my replacement connectors, or my replacement joysticks. Well, no, what I tried doing is migrating a joystick from one console to another, and that just was destructive. I really don't know a way you can do this without completely destroying the stick. Like, you can see I've melted the underside of this plastic. You could probably still use this joystick, actually, but I don't necessarily know if I would. I will, however, have to get stronger brushes. Now I need to see if I can scrape off the residue plastic. Shouldn't be too hard. Might have to get one of my... Well, I hope I don't have to slice it off with a hobby knife. That might be a little more intense than I would like. Or I wonder if those were almost intentional. Is there any reason for me to... No, those were the points that were contacting the PCB, and the PCB got very warm. No thanks to what I was doing. Oh. Okay, they come off really easily. Did I break a peg off? No? Huh, it just seems like there's something hard right there. Alright, so now it's just going to be the game of wicking away as much of this solder as I can so I can just drop the new joystick in and install it. Easy peasy. Trying to get solder out of a through hole might be difficult, but I'll do what I can. Also make sure not to bump any other components. Oh no, that was just a blob of solder. Okay. I won't use such big pliers. I'll try and use something a little smaller so it's not sucking away my heat. Never been too big of a fan of this thing, but I think it might be my only option here. Ugh. Must have neglected cleaning this thing out. I'll spare you this next part. After like 40 or so minutes of solder wicking and solder sucking, I was finding out pretty quickly that there are several vias that are attached to ground that just soak up the heat from my solder iron. Even using the biggest tip I have was not making any impact. And not wanting to do any damage, I should say, to the board or knock out any of these itty bitty resistors, I just called it for the day. I ended up getting, I think it was 4 or 5 vias cleared, but I threw the towel in, just said, hey, I'm not going to try and do this anymore. I'm just going to wait for my actual solder sucker to come in, my desoldering station, I guess you could call it, and we'll pick up from there. Okay, we're going to try this again. I decided to wait a couple days instead of keep fumbling around with it. I am definitely not ready. So I'm going to try something a little different this time from flubbing about that I was doing last time. So I'll get that here in a second. I just want to get these vias filled with solder. I tried using my handheld solder sucker and my solder wick, but I just couldn't get into these vias. I think just the ground plane that they're attached to are just sucking away too much of my heat. So now I have a bit more of a purpose-made tool. Solder sucker. Haven't used it before, so I hope it works out. Ooh, okay, okay. Well, these vias are definitely a lot more stubborn, and I kind of expected it. Hmm. Definitely not how I expected this to go. Or just keep flooding it with good solder that just try and loosen it up. Let me get these speakers off. They're just getting in the way. Oh, they're not speakers, they're rumble motors. Well, just so I can put more heat on those ground planes, be taking my poor solder sucker up to max temperature. My little ramrods get real hot when I jam them down the solder iron tip, which I guess they should. Real no surprise there. There's another one. Sweet. I'm at least making progress, even if it's taking effort. What did I say? Patience. little bit of patience and a little bit of persistence, I think we'll win the day. What I might try to do is tag team this with my hot air. I think that's the only way I can keep this board hot enough. Because I think just right now these ground planes on these mounting pins are just draining away my heat from both my iron and my solder sucker. I kind of like that plan. Let me see kind of what I can get going here. Of course, I'm going to be a little extra careful. Don't want to accidentally blow off one of these just itty bitty resistors. That's not a fun day under the microscope. One more piece should do it. Oh, I turned it down to on the right. A lot of patience and a lot of flex. Fuck. Oh, you love to see it. I think that did it. Alright. Give everything a quick inspection. Beautiful. Poor solder sucker turned off. It worked like a dream. Like I was kind of saying, just these massive ground planes on these mounting pins. Oh my goodness, they were just draining heat away. I would put my iron on it, like even these two outer ones, I was putting my iron on it, and even at, what did I have it at? 350 degrees, just the solder was just immediately solidifying. And I'm kind of, could have used a bigger tip, sure. I need to let this cool down for a second so I don't accidentally pull components off. But we're finally ready for install, I think. So now I just bought nothing crazy, just replacement thumbsticks. I did accidentally yank off the black wire for the rumble motor, so I can strip that back just a bit. There we go. I'll have to rewatch the footage to see how it was wired. I guess I can take off the old wire. I should probably re-tin my solder sucker, actually. I will have to figure out how to clean it. This will be my first time. Ah, solder right in front of me. I just need it to be hot enough to melt solder on. There we go. Turn it down and then turn it off. Still a little warm, but I'm gonna clean this board up real nice and good. Just gonna use some isopropyl alcohol to help just loosen up this captain tape. Very carefully inspect it, just make sure I didn't pull off anything, which it looks like I didn't. Even the QR code still there for whatever that is. I imagine it's for maybe their in-house pick and place machine, just making sure it's getting the right, or it's kind of knowing what's going on. You can scan that code to say, hey, this is the lower board assembly of this controller or something. Pure guess, don't know. But I know it's not for replacement parts because that would be silly. Wow, these brushes are kind of falling apart. Gotta break them in, I guess. Get all the loose hairs out. Some of these holes still have just a little bit of solder in them. I wonder if I can just sort of like do a little bit of this. I can probably just like brute force this thumbstick through. Yeah, I think I can just encourage it in. I think these were oil brushes, just kind of falling apart. I think it's more just loose hairs, but make sure everything is nice and clean after all the molesting I've done to this poor thing. It looks good. So now this should just a little encouragement. Light on. Making sure it's nice and seated. Everything's poking through. Still a little sticky from flux. Probably a little more. Okay, so now it's going to be one at a time, heating up these legs and feeding solder through. I just have to make sure this... I'm pretty confident with how it's sitting right now. I can go ahead and get a couple of these on. Yeah, those problem vias are still going to be a pain. Let me swap tips. See if I can just get a little more heat on them. Now that I'm not trying to take solder out. Well, it isn't pretty, but it should do the job. I don't really have to worry about it being dislodged or anything that crazy. Just given what it is. Now I need to see how the rumble motors were put back on. Thankfully, I have footage. Red on top, black on bottom? Is that for both sides? Yeah, that does seem to be the case. Okay. I'll try and just orient them a little how they work. I'm not sure how they fit in the case. Go back to my angled tip I've been abusing for the last while. I might need to put this in my little helping hands. Just I'm not trying to juggle the board, the rumble motor, and the solder iron at the same time. Should work. Okay. These. Naturally, the ground is going to be a little tougher to melt. I'm gonna put a little more solder on them. Not pretty, but if it works, it works. Red on top, and it's kind of pointed away like this, so this area is not as crammed, thankfully. There's not as many random components around. And then the other things I have to solder on... I have a black and gray wire. I don't remember what they go to. I know I want to put this together, at least a part, enough to test it, just to make sure that joystick isn't completely bad. Because I really don't have a way of like verifying that these joysticks are actually good. Like they might just be completely drifting right outside the gate. Should be very unfortunate. Now I need to watch my other video to see how these things come back to how this comes back together. Now I can. So it does sit on top of this board, and these wires are for probably they're the rumble motors for the triggers. I can do those later. That is not the biggest deal right now. I'm just kind of looking at there's like this. Almost looks like could be like leftover flux or something, but I don't know what that is. So let's get this back in. I know there's a couple components I need to put back in, like there's a post I need to put back in. I need to get these rumble motors resoldered in. Yeah, really don't want these shorting on anything, so I'm just gonna... These went on these little guys. Not entirely sure what they're for. I don't need the back buttons, but I think those all just kind of connect as one unit. But I do get the impression that they need to kind of fit in these canals a little better. So I will at least do that. Now this should just kind of pop back on. I believe I have it connected to my computer. I don't know how far. If I did, let me check my Bluetooth devices. Xbox wireless controller connected. Yep, brings up game bar. Now I believe, grab a gamepad tester. Yep, and I'm running my gamepad tester, and it looks like this one kind of... I'll bring up the actual screen that I'm looking at. You can see how it kind of drifts down to the bottom right. I'm just doing quick inputs. I'm only not too concerned about that because the OEM one does the same. It's a little quicker to center, and it's a little more center, like by quite a significant margin. But when I'm just doing flicks, it's going back to center. So it being off by 0.02, I don't think that necessarily matters. And plus, you set up a minor dead zone and you never have to worry about that again. And when I put the actual thumbsticks on, it'll be really hard to tell, or it shouldn't do anything. Cool. I'm very pleased. Let me turn this off before I rip it back apart. Okay. This should just come back out pretty easily. Yeah, just pogo pins. So there's a post. I think it was right here. It's this guy right here that I have to put back in. I need to verify that. I also found another post. A very little post. I don't know if those are the same. I brought that out of my joystick assembly, so I don't... It could have been, like... It may have been in there like this. I think it was, because I had it with my dismantled joystick. I was just kind of curious about how the internal bits of it worked. But let me at least get this back apart so I can put that post in. Or how do these posts? Yeah, okay. I have to put this little sticker back on as well. I'll have to remember how these go on. Okay, so I can put the sticker back on. I got this little fun little thing. I really don't know the intentions of these. I think just to kind of... Maybe these solder... Like, I would say, like, maybe it's to, like, keep the solder points from bridging with anything, but... You can see right now how it does a fantastic job of not doing that. Maybe, yeah, because it would be contacting with these boards and those exposed vias for some reason. Those little tiny golden vias. So, if I'm understanding the post correctly, it sits right here, and I think it was. It's sticking out pretty good, so. And it was held in by two screws on the corner. I have these screws off to the side here. Let me just get it unplugged again, as gently as I can, of course. And then find a way to sort of weasel this post in. Am I sure it was right there? Because this is a round hole in an oval peg. Or oval peg in a round hole. I am not crazy. Because there's a post down here in the corner. And then it was right there. It was this post. I did not like doing that. So let me just like test fit it. Oh, yeah, okay. Ripped off the positive of the rumble motor. Yeah, that was a pretty violent rip that I did. I didn't like doing it either. Sorry, rumble motor. I'll get you. I think it's just because I'm coming at it at an angle. There we go. I'll get that rumble motor when I do the other rumble motors. Get that back and pushed in. These two guys plugged in. Not all too enthusiastic about the point. The talking and doing is hard. I think that's just the conclusion I can draw. I'm not going to be too pleased with the angle I'm going to have to be soldering at to get these rumble motors in. Not too worried about like waving my hot solder iron around and like scorching stuff, but doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Might have to strip the positive back a little. Yes, I will. Well, it's maybe a little much, but it'll just make a good connection. How about that? Kind of doing this off screen again. Oh, that's what I was fighting against. I didn't get all the wire out. Well, that kind of explains that. Definitely being a little more cumbersome than the first time. There we go, a little bit of flux, and everything is good. Well, good enough. Alright. Let me check how these rumble motors were soldered on. I think it looks like gray, then black. Gray, then black. Yep. Now, were they on kind of, were they coiled around anything, or were they just sort of freeballing? They were kind of like shoved up in here, but for all intents and purposes, they're freeballing it. Gray, then black. Well, at least as far as what I'm putting back on is black, then gray, but... Okay. I should refer an iFixit guide real quick. One of the biggest problems I have with this iFixit guide is some of the guides are just videos. Okay, I can pop the shoulder buttons back on. I don't know why I needed to take those off to begin with. Okay. Two posts, the wires, and the screws. Okay. I'm noticing the triggers are kind of getting caught up right there for some reason. I'm guessing the shell will kind of hold it down a little, so I won't have to worry about that. So I had a 00, or I had a number 1, I think. So I think I need, this guy is a T6. Are these T6 screws? Yes, two T6. So it should be these two right here. Okay. And it looks like I should be good to get it back together. Now, I think I just kind of tuck these wires kind of here. Not too fancy. But I put all of the T8s. Yeah, TH security. I don't think these are security bits. Ooh, I did miss one thing. I was looking at it a little earlier. Phone. No, yeah, so it rests just right there. I'm glad I remembered. I shouldn't need to take this whole board out, just enough to pop that in. Should just be like that, and then what I might actually do is put a little, since I'm in here, I don't ever want to worry about it, and I need to find it. I'm just going to put a little Captain tape just kind of over these stickers and over my, a little over my solder joints. I know these pogo pins need to make contact, so I don't want to put too much material, just to make sure that they don't jab anything. I don't ever intend on taking this thing apart ever again. But if I do, I can make fun of myself, I suppose. Now I can put those bits back in. Headphone jack is in. I'll grab the 6 T8 security screws. Are they security? Yes, they are. How about that? One down. Oh, I'm kind of missing something. I need something to screw into. Let me give these little pins one more wiping with rubbing alcohol. I basically didn't touch this board, so I don't need to worry about it. Now it's just going to be me kind of tucking it in, watching those wires, the rumble motor wires. Might be, oh, I might have to kind of put it in bottom port first, I think. Making sure those shoulder buttons are in. Okay. Making a pretty... Okay, yeah, the shoulder buttons aren't inhibiting the triggers. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So let's get these screws in. Backing it out until I hear it click. Huh. That was weird. I could feel the rubber material moving as I was screwing it in. The rubber material, it's very comfy, but man, it's soft. Just making sure I'm screwing in the right spots. This was under the warranty sticker. According to the iFixit pictures, I didn't need the screw on those thumbsticks. So I believe that still remains true. Those are nice and snug in there. All right. Now these guys. I have to grab the other one from my case. Right. Now this should be interesting. Try and see if I can feel it backing out. That may have been it. No, it's a little hard to tell. I did kind of feel it there. Instead of pliers, I've just been using a thumbstick. This might not be really good for the thumbstick, but I think it does it. I can try my pliers here and make sure it's just getting a good... Just sort of feeling for it to click. I kind of felt like it, so I don't cross-thread it. That feels a little better. Okay. Feel good. I'm gonna try and crank these down. Thankfully I have a little microfiber cloth that I got from putting a screen protector on a DSi. Wow, I don't like doing that. Can't even say I'm doing anything. Ooh, that one's on there. Okay. I think that's good. I'm not going to be loosening those by... Okay. Before I... Clipping on those, that's interesting. Oh, looks like it just kind of... Did I break it? No, it's rubber. Oh, I didn't even know these popped off. Okay. Yeah, just... Right? Okay. It's popping off way too easily, though. I didn't break it off, but I might just have to do a little bit of super glue. Just sort of testing it. Yeah, this one keeps popping off. I'm gonna super glue it. I'll do that in a second. Just make sure not to lose that. I do want to run the gamepad tester again. I can actually put thumbsticks on. Get it turned on. I'll also test the paddles. I always liked how these fed in. Nice magnetic. I know there's some gamepad testers who can't see it. That seems to be the case here. Oh, there we go. Okay. And I think I have them keyed to my D-pad. Yes, I do. Both triggers are good. All the face buttons are good. Now, what I was really interested in, of course, is let's test circularity. Huh. I don't have the faceplate on, so it's not restricting me. So I'm just watching how they're going back to center. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. I am very pleased with that. Oh, there was a vibration test. Not really something you can visualize, but I wonder if it got the triggers or not. It's a little hard to tell when the whole thing's shaking, but I think it's doing it. I wonder if I'll be able to see them. See it shaking in my hands. Kinda. Okay, let's get this trigger. Just the dot of super glue back on. Or not this trigger, but this, well, it is a part of the trigger assembly. Careful not to spray super glue everywhere, so that should be good. Oh, the faceplate. This faceplate I did not like, not even in the slightest. Just the way it was clipped on, it was on there nice. Just these big, massive clips. Guessing it's just going to be a matter of just pressing this thing back together. I was able to get it off somewhat. Kind of tell it dipped in that side there. Okay. Now we can try the gamepad tester again with the actual faceplate back on. Test for circularity, so to speak. You can definitely tell that the replacement stick, it doesn't go as high to the top leftern quadrant. How much are we talking? Like just basically little to no variance. Like I would be really hard pressed to find a game where I'll be able to notice that I can't go up as high. But it feels good. Returns to center. The only way to really test it is to play a game, which I won't do here, but I think that was a successful replacement. A little convincing. Had to, purchase a tool that's maybe a little more, or if about as the same price as this controller, but that'll enable me to do more fixes like this in the future. And aside from the kind of the gripes I had taking this thing apart, which just prying off this faceplate was the most painful, this is a very nice controller. I'm happy to have it.